this is going to be something. And, you and I were talking off the air today. Kato's going to be the 13th Dragongate trainee that's going to debut since the start of the pandemic. Now, you can wind that clock back 3 months to December of 2019 and include SB Kento and Jackie Funky Kamei on that list. But for the sake of this, pandemic training onwards, Madoka Kikuta, Sora Fujikawa, La Estrella, Riki Hashi, ISHIN Hashi, Takumi Hayakawa, Takuma Fujiwara, Ria Fuda, Shoya Sato, Mochizuki Jr., Nagano, Nishikawa, and now Kato. 13 trainees since the start of the pandemic. Obviously, Fujikawa, Riki, and Sato are gone, but that is an insane level of output for your dojo to have.
Yeah, and it's something that I think that with how Dragongate has been run, one would expect it to be like a lot of people kind of in Kaito Nagano's mold, right? Like you'd expect it to be smaller guys who are slight that are hoping to be flyers. Like, I mean, that's always been the rep about Dragon System, is that they just run around and fly and don't do anything else. But you look at these 13 guys and what a disparity. I mean that like in a good way. Like you look at from your Minoritas all the way to your Madoka Kikuta and body types. You look at wrestling styles. You look at this, and I think like other than like the sheer output, the thing that's remarkable is just how varied the debutees have been since the pandemic started. Because like everyone, that there's no one out of that group of 13. Maybe because it was so early with Riki and Shoya Sato, you can't necessarily say, but no one felt like that they were samey out of this group so far.
No, you're exactly right. And the thing that intrigues me, you and I talk about some subtle changes that have happened in Dragongate this year. One of them being the structure of Cork and Hall feeling more and more like a Torimon show than a 2014-2015 Dragongate show. I think another thing that's really interesting is we're once again starting to see rookies debut with some impact. And that doesn't mean they're winning right away. That doesn't even mean that they're debuting with some extraordinary gimmick. But there is something that I find very intriguing about this specific class, this future number 2, with Mochizuki Jr., Nishikawa, and now Kato, because we obviously saw him. I mean, Mochizuki Jr. was in the main event of his first show. He debuted in the main event of the Torimon reunion show. Nagano's there, but Nagano is following that more traditional path. Now you have Kato, who scores a fall in an exhibition match. I am assuming he will lose to Kikuta, but anything is possible after a debut like this. But nevertheless, that is a rookie that is once again debuting with a bit of a thud. There's some emphasis there. He's not just a kid from the dojo. He's a kid from the dojo that has a story attached to him already. And then there's... Go ahead.
I was going to say, just add on to that for a second. And he's landing with a thud, and he doesn't have the things that make it a thud, like how the Hashis were the first thoroughbreds. Mochizuki Jr., the son of Masaki Mochizuki. Like, literally, like, we're learning stuff about this guy as this is happening. Like, 25 years old, former police officer, was a javelin thrower in school. Like, that's all we know about this guy, but he's already made an indelible impact.
And I was afraid last week when we talked about him that he might have left the company because there was a gap in between when the rest of his classmates debuted and when he debuted. And given that he was in that weird limbo of, the future class had ended, but he hadn't debuted, I thought there was a chance that we just might not ever hear his name again. But here he is in this exhibition match. Again, he's going to debut with a thud. And I will emphasize this so strongly. Do not sleep on Takuma Nishikawa. The fact that they sent him to Mexico to debut and then he's going to come to Japan, that is a guy that I have my eyeballs on. When he comes to Japan, and I feel this way about Fujiwara, I feel this way about SB Kento, I don't really feel this way about Estrella, but I feel this way about Nishikawa. These are guys that are going to come back and they are going to make an immediate impact. Something I was thinking about earlier this week. Would it surprise you if when we get the eventual Takuma Nishikawa Japanese landing that is in 2024, and that he spends the entire next year in Mexico. I don't know anything about him. I haven't heard anything, but would that shock you if he is gone for that long?
No, and I think that's probably what to expect. The more I'm wrapping my head around it, just because of how differently he's been handled, makes me think that you send him there, he does the debut, and then for all intents and purposes, forget about him until he shows back up.
He's a big guy. He's a handsome guy. Supposedly he can do some flying. I'm telling you guys, Takuma Nishikawa is so just know the name. His Mexico work has been very intriguing to say the least. I certainly see some potential there. When he comes to Japan, that is going to be a guy that we are going to be talking a lot about.